There's a moment that keeps happening. You're with someone, you're laughing, nodding, responding, but something feels slightly off. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. And later, when you're alone, a quiet question appears. If you act differently with everyone, which version of you is actually real? Visual, person sitting alone in a dim room, soft light through window. And more importantly, why does this keep happening? Even when you don't want it to. You don't plan it. It just happens automatically. With one person, you're quieter, more careful. With another, you're more confident, more expressive. You adjust your humor, your opinions, even your tone of voice. It's subtle. Sometimes you laugh at things you don't find funny. Sometimes you agree with things you don't fully believe. And in the moment, it feels necessary, not to manipulate, but to maintain stability. But afterward, there's a strange emotional aftertaste, a kind of internal distance. You replay conversations in your mind, not because something went wrong, but because something didn't feel fully honest. Over time, this creates a deeper fear, not just that others don't know you, but that you don't know yourself. Psychology calls this self-concept instability. Your sense of who you are starts to feel fluid, context-dependent, shaped by whoever you're with. And this doesn't just affect conversations, it affects decisions. You hesitate more because you don't fully trust which part of you is making the choice. It affects relationships because you wonder if people love you or the version of you that adapts to them. And most of all, it affects your identity because when your personality keeps shifting, you start to feel like a stranger inside your own life. But this pattern didn't appear randomly. It started somewhere specific. And to understand it, you have to understand what your brain was trying to protect you from. You didn't become this way because you're fake. You became this way because your brain learned something very early. That authenticity was not always safe. For many people, there were moments growing up where being fully themselves led to something painful. Rejection, embarrassment, disapproval, exclusion. Sometimes it was obvious. Being laughed at, being criticized, being ignored. Sometimes it was subtle, a parent becoming distant when you expressed certain emotions, friends responding better when you acted a certain way. Your nervous system noticed these patterns, and it adapted, not consciously, but automatically. It learned. Certain versions of you create connection, other versions create distance. So it started favoring connection, even if it meant suppressing parts of yourself, not because you were weak, but because your brain prioritizes one thing above almost everything else: social belonging. Because, historically, belonging meant survival. And this leads to a deeper question. How does your brain actually do this? How does it change who you are without you realizing it? Your brain is constantly running a prediction model. It's trying to answer one silent question: what version of me will keep me safe here? One of the key systems involved is the social monitoring network, especially areas like the medial prefrontal cortex. This part of your brain tracks how others respond to you, their tone, their facial expressions, their level of interest. It's like an internal radar. But here's where it gets more interesting. Your brain doesn't just observe, it adjusts. This is connected to a concept in psychology called self-monitoring. High self-monitors unconsciously shape their behavior to match their environment. Low self-monitors stay more consistent across situations. Neither is inherently bad, but high self-monitoring often develops in people who learned early that acceptance was conditional. Here's a simple mental model. Imagine your personality is like water. Water has no fixed shape. It adapts to whatever container it enters. This makes water incredibly flexible, but it also means it never sees its original form. Your brain does this because of something called prediction error minimization. If your brain predicts rejection and rejection happens, it confirms danger. So it adjusts your behavior to reduce the risk next time. Over time, this becomes automatic. You stop choosing who to be. Your nervous system chooses for you, not based on authenticity, but based on safety. And this is why it feels so hard to stop. Because this isn't just a habit, it's a protection system, which means the solution isn't forcing yourself to be different. It's retraining your brain to feel safe being seen. And that happens through specific, gradual shifts, not by changing who you are, but by changing how your brain experiences authenticity. Here are 4 principles that begin this process. And this is why it feels so hard to stop, because this isn't just a habit, it's a protection system. Which means the solution isn't forcing yourself to be different. It's retraining your brain to feel safe being seen. And that happens through specific, gradual shifts, not by changing who you are, but by changing how your brain experiences authenticity. Here are 4 principles that begin this process. Instead of forcing disagreement, you just internally note, that wasn't fully me. This weakens the unconscious pattern over time. 2. Practice micro-authenticity. What to do? Express small, low-risk authentic reactions, not big ones, small ones. Why it works? Your brain learns safety through gradual exposure. Sudden authenticity feels dangerous. Small authenticity feels manageable. Each time you survive it, your nervous system updates its prediction. Example, instead of laughing automatically, you simply smile. Instead of saying "I love that," you say "that's interesting." Small honesty, safe honesty. This builds identity tolerance. Delay your automatic response. What to do? Pause before reacting, even for 2 seconds. 3. Your automatic personality shifts happen in milliseconds. Pausing interrupts the habit loop. This allows your conscious self to participate. Example, someone asks your opinion, why it works. Instead of answering immediately, you pause. You feel what you actually think. Being alone, or with someone you trust deeply, notice how your personality feels there. That version of you is not fake. It's simply unguarded. And this leads to the most important realization. You don't have to create a new self. You just have to reduce the fear around the one that already exists. 6. Integration. Your personality was never missing. It was adapting, like water inside different containers. But water doesn't lose itself. It only changes shape temporarily. Your brain built this flexibility to protect you, to help you belong, to help you survive emotionally. But survival and authenticity are not the same thing. And over time, your nervous system can learn something new, that you don't have to earn belonging by disappearing, that you can exist without constant adjustment. Not perfectly, not instantly, but gradually, through small moments of honesty. 7. Quiet empowering close. There's nothing wrong with you. You were never fake. You were careful. Careful in ways that made sense. Careful in ways that kept you connected. But somewhere along the way, you forgot what it felt like to exist without calculating yourself. And maybe this isn't about finding who you really are. Maybe it's about creating enough safety that you no longer feel the need to hide. Visual, empty room with sunlight slowly filling space. Because the real you was never gone. It was just waiting for permission to stop protecting itself. And slowly, that permission can come from you.